Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm really excited about the movie we're going to do today because it is actually the movie that inspired the creation of this podcast. About a month or two ago, I was watching this movie and I stopped halfway through it because I was kind of just upset how I was taking in all this beautiful films and things and I didn't have anyone to share it with. So I was like, wouldn't it be great if I could somehow share this with people? And that was sort of the genesis of the podcast. So the film we are going to be discussing today is called The Point. It's an iconic early 70s animated film. Harry Nilsson made an album, and this is sort of like the visual accompaniment, but I think it really works on its own. Yeah, you don't really need to listen to the album. I mean, the music is in the film. This version was narrated by Ringo Starr. I saw online that there was a few other different narrators, but the most famous one, I believe, is the one with Ringo Starr. The Point, 1971. I have Alder with me. Say hi.
Hello, Alder back again, episode 3. Very excited to talk about The Point, which is one that I have never seen until the watch for this podcast. And it's got so much to it, and it's such a fever dream.
Fever daydream.
Yeah.
I guess I'll give a brief overview of what the film was about. So it's basically there's this village where everything has a point, literally. So all the buildings have points. Everything that people make has a point on it, and all the people have pointy heads. So they're all born with this cone-looking head, that type thing. But then one day, someone is born without a point. They have a round head. And they get ostracized for it, and they're seen as kind of being different. But for the most part, most of the town seems to accept this person. I mean, they still find them to be a bit strange, but there is some bullying going on, but it seems like for the most part, people think he's a stand-up kid. Oblio, I believe is his name. Oblio. Also, just real quick, so this is one of those sort of story within a story. So it starts out with this dad reading a bedtime story to his son. The story about the pointy village people that's the story. And we occasionally go back into the father reading to his son. And the father is Ringo Starr, and he's doing all the narrating. So yeah, it's mainly that. And basically, he gets banished from the village, the rounded one, and we follow his journey
Into the pointless forest.
The pointless
Great
forest,
name.
Yes, and yeah, sort of like a prodigal son thing, except in this case, he didn't do anything wrong. he was just sort of, they were just being mean to him because he was round.
Yeah, and really, like you were saying, most people were kind of fond of this kid, but it was the main villain, the Count. The Count's son decides one day when they're playing triangle toss, he's going to go after this kid.
Triangle toss is sort of like the official sport of this universe. They basically throw up this boomerang looking thing, but it's like a triangle, and then you have to catch it on the point in your head. So yes, but you were saying the Count, he got his father to banish Oblio.
Yeah, they had a whole tribunal where everybody in the town got to say their piece about this child.
This was like 12 Angry Men or something, or To Kill a Mockingbird. Really serious. They had debates going on about whether we should let this kid stay or not.
Men with cigars in their mouth, kind of talking like this.
Yeah, it was a concerning time for a young Oblio, and the king sort of had a kind of Pontius Pilate thing going on, where he didn't really want to ban Oblio, but as they say in the movie, the law is the law. So he didn't really want to, but he did it anyway. And
Yeah, and then Oblio's parents were kind of like, well, I guess the law's the law. See you later, little son.
yeah, I mean, the parents were clearly very sad, but
Right.
I mean, I'm not gonna like ban my
Right.
child to the pointless forest, but I mean, that's not really the point of the film.
And Oblio also had a sidekick, a companion, Arrow, his dog in this one. And when I was looking up the background for this movie, the lead single, "Me and My Arrow," which plays throughout, was peaked on the Billboard Hot 100 at 34. So that was apparently a pretty big song. And I feel like Arrow is, a breakout star of this movie for sure. So
Yeah.
he wasn't alone. He had a little crew going into the pointless forest.
Yeah, I loved Arrow. What a lovely. I think he was described as the world's best dog when he was introduced.
They said, "You guessed it." And I'm like, oh, I did. And then a dog comes, the world's best dog. Very cute.
Also, one little thing I noticed was, so most of the people are orange. The count, I believe, was like blue or purple or something. But I noticed they made Oblio white because in the real world, he's white. Not Caucasian, like literally like the color of white.
And the king was white too. Like they made him white. I was noticing that too, because then everybody in the tribunal was like a peachy color. And I was just like, what do these colors denote in this world? It wasn't really clear.
Well, I think they did it for Oblio because they were trying to draw a parallel between like the real boy and he was sort of like the main character in the story.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
I'm guessing. And so, but yeah, that was, and I guess it was also another type of othering because like everyone was mainly orange, but then he was different. So that was just a little bit. So what parts would you like to get into? What stuck out to you with this?
Well, so like the whole movie opens with this scene, this like hatch drawing of a house, and then we're kind of going into the house, and there's this, it's like that story within a story that you're talking about, and this idea about how like books and stories are going to be long forgotten to the newest generation and should be appreciated, kind of like this Princess Bride vibe that so many movies and TV have. And the animation is just like so vast and varied, and I really loved like the hatching style that it took on, kind of like a Yellow Submarine and Schoolhouse Rock had a baby or something with the cone heads like mixed in. It was really interesting. And the attention to detail, like the triangle glasses, like some people had glasses, and I loved those because they felt like kind of modern in a way. I feel like people have those statement like not sunglasses, but eyeglasses nowadays. Yeah, so that really stood out to me, just like the overall style, and I loved the way that the count's overall demeanor and having that kind of perpetual frown, like full of teeth and pointed nose, and then had the mustache that's kind of like bushy going up, like a very villainous persona. Yeah. So how about you, as far as like what stuck out to you?
Well, yeah, the animation alone was just like, it's so up my alley. It's just like, as soon as it opens, I'm like, this is perfection. Like, it just has so many like scratchy, scribbly lines, like the way it's, I don't know, there's just like so much line work, and it's very scratchy looking, almost like tumbleweeds. And it has this like abstract sort of contrast to sort like a more, something more like a Disney film would be. It almost, I'm really curious about like what the budget was, because it looked like it was just like one guy who animated it from what I was looking. I don't know if that was true, but it had this almost like auteur look to it, of just like this like one person's
like doodles on a notebook, and it looked like notebook paper in the background. Sometimes they're like graph paper, like those little dots and stuff too.
I mean, it was still like incredibly like detailed and professional. I'm not saying that it was like lo-fi or anything, but it had this sort of this rawness to it, that this sort of like, I don't know, it had this approachability that when I was watching it, it made me think like, oh yeah, I I could animate something too, you know, like, and I know it's just like so beautifully done, like the colors and just like that scratchy tumbleweed look. I also like how it wasn't like the movement wasn't super smooth. So like when the characters are moving, you can see like each line like change a lot each second. And then like, I don't know if it was like painted, but like anytime colors were filled in and then they would be moving, you would see sort of like, the patterns would kind of change just like ever so slightly because it was like no brush stroke was the same for each frame.
Right. Yeah. And it was like, and how the animation changed in kind of the more trippy aspects, like once they got to the forest, and it was almost like a watercolor. Like I know what you're talking about. It was, and like the blues especially that they would bring in. That was really interesting. Just overall, how much of the movie took these like turns into these places where you're like, where is this and how does this relate? But like then it goes back to the overall theme, which is like point, like what's the point? Is there pointlessness? And then they're kind of doing all these pointless things in the pointless forest, but they kind of make sense in the larger scheme. But also the animation really like is derivative, I feel like, from the rest of the style. Like it kind of melds and turns and gets more like soft in a way, like the colors, from what I remember at least.
I like those asides you're talking about. My favorite one was when it's like a fish gets eaten by a larger fish, and then like when a fish decomposes in its bones, and I was not really sure what was happening, but it felt so right. And it would almost felt like a great way to explain like the cycle of life to like kids or something. Like, I don't know if that's what they were going for, but I don't know. It was just like this sort of beautiful kind of, I don't know, that just explaining the cycles of things and how things go and like the ecosystem, but in this really trippy, cute way.
That was definitely my favorite part too. And I was really curious what yours was. I mean, I'm like a fish aficionado. I really like
you're
fish.
A aficionado?
So anytime there's a fish, I'm into it. But like it was very poetic, that part too. Like fishes who ate fishes, swallowed by a whale who grew so old he decomposed, and then he died and he left his body to the bottom of the ocean. And like the way that they worded it, and that's another thing I really appreciated about this film was the vocabulary and the word choices. Like there were all these little parables and lessons like that would just be thrown in there haphazardly. You know, it's just like some dialogue, you know, from some person. And that was one of the most delightful parts of it for me, you know, like hearing the words and the decomposition. And there was something very soft about that part too. Like it wasn't scary or hard. And you saw in the animation, you saw the fish grow so old, like, and you watched him, and then you watched him decompose, and then he fell to the bottom of the ocean. And I would think that would be like difficult to make that not look scary, but it didn't look scary to me. It looked like kind of soft and warm and right, like in a way, which was very beautiful.
Yeah, I think there's this idea that like death and like all those things are like tough concepts to like portray especially for like a younger audience. But you know, it is really nice when you can, I guess what it is like, you don't have to dumb things down for people, especially kids, and you can portray things in ways where they can sort of appreciate it in maybe like in an abstract way. And, you know, it's just like the cycle of life. And it was like a beautiful thing. It wasn't like weird or unnatural. It was just like, oh yeah, this is how things happen. And I don't know, it kind of like brought me back to like a more innocent time before like being afraid of certain things, like about, you know, the way the world works. It's just like, oh, this is just a natural thing. And obviously the song that accompanies that scene is probably my favorite in the film. Harry Nilsson. He was a friend of the Beatles. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, speaking of like some of the dialogue, I love when watching like older films, like when they say things that people still say now, because it makes me feel like, oh yeah, we're not that different. Like just feeling a connection. Because I remember there's this one scene where these two men are talking about the new round-headed boy who was born, and one of the guys is like, "Oh come on, you're putting me on," like, and he's just saying it in this very like contemporary way. I don't know. I mean, not that at that point things weren't contemporary for that time, but it's sort of interesting, like which little kind of like phrases and things people still use. And
yeah, I thought that was interesting at the tribunal too, how it felt like that was very contemporary, the way that people were talking about other people and making it their business and having their opinions about things. That felt very real to now.
Well, I wrote down, there's this one moment during the tribunal scene where this woman says, "You're baiting me. You're baiting me." Like, because they're trying to convince that, that like Oblio should be banished. And then she's like, "Oh no," she literally says, "You're baiting me." Like, you're trying to like get a rise out of me. You're like trying to, and I was like, is this like an internet, like, conversation? Because like that word, like baiting, like it's very relevant politically.
I guess
nowadays.
It's as old as fishing, though. If we're really thinking about it.
True.
Maybe, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this movie was incredibly like political when you like really think about it. Like that, I mean, that whole like trials thing was just like, I mean, I feel like I almost don't have to say it, but I mean, it was very clear that it was like about like minorities and all of that. And it was just really like, I was like, is this, I really felt like I was watching something from like today. It was amazing.
Yeah. On the flip side of the dialogue that carries over, I also loved and adored the slang of the day, specifically Jiminy and holy cow. And what was the rock man, who was a character that comes in, he says, "Here's the lick, you dig?" I said, oh my God, can we bring back "Here's the lick"? Like, I love that.
Yeah, the rock man was probably like the most like dated element of the film. But I was totally fine with it. I mean, I'm guessing he was like supposed to be sort of like a rock and roll, because he's the rock man and he's talking with all this kind of like cool lingo, and he said something about stones, and I was like, oh, is this like a reference to like being stoned? He said
probably.
Yeah. And it's funny, he had this like really like jivey like way of speaking, but then at one point he almost sounded like Caribbean or something. Like, I don't know what was going on. And I really liked how he was designed. He had this like multicolor, like he almost looked like a rock quilt.
Yeah,
that
like
makes sense.
He was all speckled in a way.
Yeah. He was really cool, and he kept like cutting off Oblio with saying these kind of like, I don't know, these like really esoteric kind of like quips about life. And he's like, "Yeah, man, the point is you don't need a point to have a point," or I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, at one point he said, "You see what you want to see and you hear what you want to hear."
It's like, okay, man, whatever floats your boat. Let me see what else. I mean, I feel like everyone should just watch it and you'll see like what the message is. And it is interesting that it like the play between the literal points and then like the figurative, like what's the point? And yeah, I don't know. I don't fully, I still think I'm like on each watching, I kind of like, it's not entirely on the nose what the point is, but it's not like completely meandering. And then like there's like this role reversal at the end where Oblio like grows a point and then everyone else loses their point. So it's kind of like, yeah, that was just like a nice touch.
Yeah, I thought that was a really unique way to end it too. Like they could have done the really typical thing and he grew the point and he was just like everybody else, but they really, inflected it and back onto the other people. And everyone was okay with their round heads too at the end, and they were kind of integrating the round with the points. Going back to what you said about the rock man being stoned. So I read that the musician came up with the music on an acid trip. Said that I was on acid and I looked at the trees and I realized that they all came to points. And that's where he came up with the idea for it. Which I can respect, but like I mean, so that was on Wikipedia, so you know, take it with a grain of salt, but it's interesting how so much of the animation or the media has the tripping aspect to it, you know, whether it's in your face or it's really muted. This one's pretty in your face, I think.
You know, it's interesting that even though it was inspired by like an acid trip, he was still able to make it this sort of, I don't know if it's exactly 3-act structure, but even though it's like abstract, it's easy to follow and you see what's going on, and it's not sort of like this long, pretentious kind of like meandering thing. And that's something that I liked about it, because a lot of other media that is inspired by sort of psychedelic experiences can sometimes
feel unedited and
yes.
just keep going on and on.
Yes, thank you. That's the word. So this was definitely like very compact, succinct, cute. And it didn't like it said what it had to say.
Yeah, like just long enough for the soundtrack, pretty much, I think, is how I felt about it. Like I mean, it had a little bit longer probably than that, but it was really built around the music and then kind of came together in a way that wasn't like forcing a lot more extra fluff around that.
Yeah, but it still works on its own as a film, and I felt that it didn't feel like a music video either. I just want to be clear to people that like this very much felt like a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it wasn't just sort of like, hey, here's a bunch of cool, trippy visuals. Like, there's like I think the story is really what stuck with me. And just to jump back to what you're saying in the tribunal, where like when everyone like gets not redheads, round heads. It reminded me a little bit of Pleasantville. Where at the end they're also in like it's like a town hall or trial, or I don't know what it is, but one of like the guys who's really against all the colored people, as he calls them, he gets so angry that. So for those you don't know, Pleasantville is I think 1999 film, Tobey Maguire, and basically everyone, the whole town is in black and white, but then slowly everyone starts like getting like bits of color on them, and the people, some people don't like it and they want things to stay the same. So one of the men who really, really hates that everything is bursting into color, he gets really angry, and then he himself bursts into color, and then he runs away and he's all angry. And it's kind of like that, because the Count, I believe, he was really angry at Oblio. And then he's the first one, I think, who gets a round head. So it's sort of, he's so angry at Oblio for not having a point, and then he loses his own point. So I thought that was sort of a nice.
Yeah. I wonder if there was some inspiration with that film with this one.
Maybe, yeah. So I'm trying to think what else. I mean,
what did you think about the egg at the end? Where that bird comes out of the egg. I thought that it was one of the sweetest lines. I think Oblio says it. He says, "What happens is you just got hatched. You're born now." And he said that to the little bird, and I was like, "Oh, isn't that sweet?"
I don't know. I think I need another watch, because that part I wasn't entirely sure what the point was. I mean, I know that there was a point and I liked it, but it definitely like took me in another direction, and I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, I wonder if it's because, so the egg is round, but then the bird comes out of it, and the bird has a beak, and the beak is pointed, so it's like the integration of the round and and that's born the new way of thinking that like those two things can coexist together, or I don't know. That was also making me think of being like the idea of like trans folks like being in their egg form and stuff like that. There were a couple times in this where I was like, is this a queer film? Like, I'm really not sure.
Yes. All films are queer films.
Unequivocally, it is a queer film.
Yeah, I don't know how I missed the obvious like egg coming out of the shell thing. Yeah. Yeah, that probably makes sense. And it almost reminds me of the first film we did where you said like round and pointy can coexist, sort of like numbers and words Phantom Tollbooth. And also it was sort of like a short predecessor to what happens with Oblio, because he was round and then he hatches his point. Yeah, it is a nice role reversal. It kind of reminds me a little, like, remember in Shrek where, like, Fiona becomes an ogre too, and then they get to be happy? And I was like, okay, but it's still sending a message that you kind of have to be, like...
everybody else, or, like, conform to a certain...
Yeah, like she couldn't be, like, how she looked and be with Shrek. She had to be an ogre too. So I thought this one was kind of cool how it doesn't just end with him being... pointy, but everyone else gets a taste of their own medicine. Yeah.
I wonder what happened to the triangle toss.
Yeah.
If they had to make a new sport.
Triangle toss. Yeah, maybe we should, like people actually play like Quidditch in real life. Maybe we should bring triangle toss, like.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, because all the triangles too in this. So that wasn't for me. To me, I was like queer.
Yes.
Like,
oh man,
that could be our official sport.
Triangle toss. We'll wear like dunce caps. I also like. So in the movie Oblio, before he gets his pointy head, he wears like this like triangle. It looks like a dunce cap, and it almost seemed like, I know he's trying to be like everyone else, but it almost seemed like it set him apart, kind of, because it's clearly a hat. And
yeah, well, and it ended up being kind of like a mobility aid for him to like be around in the world, like because he had to do the pointy things with the pointy people, but he didn't have a point. So
yeah, I think pretty much like I felt like you could pretty much like substitute like any minority for like what this film was like an allegory for, because I was thinking about like neurodivergence. I was thinking about like able-bodied versus like non-able-bodied. I mean, race, like pretty much anything. So it was pretty interesting. But it was just interesting how like there was nothing. Because like I remember when Oblio was born, like the mom was like, well, he's a healthy baby boy and he's happy and like they're all good things, but he doesn't look like the others. And then the last thing I want to say is I thought another thing that made this film really relevant was how a lot of people felt sort of guilty for not standing up for Oblio. I'm not sure when it is, but you hear some conversations between some of the adults where they're like, oh, like maybe we should have like stood up, or maybe we shouldn't have allowed this. And it's sort of like that kind of guilt at like not standing up for justice. And I feel like you hear that with the conversation with like the parents, where the dad, he's sort of like teetering. He's like, well, like I don't want Oblio to leave, but the law is the law, but I wish it wasn't the law. And it was just very like clearly about civil rights and things like that. So
yeah, definitely.
So y'all should see The Point. It is on YouTube. Let us know what you think the point is. Do you have a point? Do you need to have a point? Yeah, a point, the point, points. All right, we shall see you in the next episode of 70s Daydreams. Toodaloo.
Goodbye.